Greetings Australia and welcome back to What Lies in the Sunday Telegraph. It is, as you will see in the neat little super up there, the 21st of July 2019. It is 3 degrees here in Canberra. And I have a copy of the Sunday Telegraph deposited on my lawn, the only newspaper on the street, I hasten to add. People ask me why we do these videos, and you might wonder why you're watching. In short, I've come to believe that the Murdoch press represents all that is wrong in human affairs, and we must oppose it and defeat it. And sadly, it's very hard to defeat an enemy that we don't understand. And so, let us begin. What's on the cover? An attractive blonde woman. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. Cocaine Cassie's amazing transformation in South American jail. Model inmate. She grabbed world headlines as Cocaine Cassie, the pathetic Aussie smuggler arrested at Bogota Airport. But today, after a year in Colombia's toughest prison, we reveal how Cassandra Sainsbury has made a miracle transition from pitiable drug mule to jailhouse glamour. We should all be trying to spend time in a Colombian prison so we too can get hard. We also have a robbery gone bad, the murder of Australian Lucas Fowler and his American girlfriend China Deese on a remote Canadian highway was probably a robbery gone wrong, her brother said. This is the one where large numbers of New South Wales police are going to Canada, which seems like an amazing amount of outreach and family support for any murdered Australian. It would be nice if that level of support was available to everyone whose dad is not a police inspector or commissioner. Anyway, a very high-ranking New South Wales policeman. It's almost as if the resources of his workplace are being used to assist in his personal matters, but I'm sure that is not the case. Return of 40 jihadis. 40 Australian jihadis have slipped back into the country after fighting on foreign battlefields, posing a significant risk to national security, the federal government has revealed. It's funny how they reveal these things when it suits them, isn't it? And, you know, Australians have been going and fighting on foreign battlefields for no particular good reason for the entire history of this country. But, you know, the ones we don't like. So, drinking from the big mug, do the flappy nose today. Long-term fans of the show will, I'm sure, be glad to see that back. I think I figured out if I hold my finger there. Oh, no flappy nose, hot coffee. Everyone's a winner. Alright. Mix Picks, the editor's best. This is where the journalists find out who's the favourite this week. Escape, dream about your next escape. Funnily enough, the most heavily advertising supported part of the paper is also number one in Mix Picks. Who'd have thought? They're taking us how the best places to see the Northern Lights, which is weird because we have the Southern Lights in Australia and, you know, you can go to Tasmania and see them. But I'm sure the Northern Lights are lovely too. Number 2, Body and Soul, also heavily advertising supported. Do you really need that? Cheat days and what they do to your body. The Last of the Real Publicans, independent pubs reminding drinkers what going to the pub really means. Yeah, right. Matt Preston investigates what makes the perfect school lunch. So, wow, here's another, there's a special report. There's a feature. The Glossy Mag Inside. It's literally publicised as Glossy Mag Inside. Birthday Bindi, the little girl who won Australia's hearts. Hooray. Some sort of comic thing that I think we want to see. So no news at all has troubled Mix Picks in the Sunday Telegraph. No news at all. Take that, journalists. You should just be writing ad feature copy. Probably get paid more to write ad feature copy. I mean, it used to be that was the most junior job in the paper, but that's certainly the bits that the editor's in favour of. So page 3, we have Bindi Irwin in a nice dress, and she's turning 21, and his loss still haunts her, as you would expect. I mean, even in the ancient folk who would walk into a newsagent on a Sunday and say, "What am I going to read today?" Oh, the Bindi Irwin's in the news. They've got phones, don't they? Wouldn't they look it up on that? Oh, but I just like to sit at the breakfast table and turn the pages. Which is kind of what we're doing here. Can't hate on them totally for that, I guess. Back to the 40 jihadis living with us. Okay, Canadian double murder mystery gets 2 pages. Harvey Norman has page 6. Mattress clearance. As with anything, I can't imagine why you'd choose to pay Jerry Harvey's overheads for your products when there are places with less overheads with the same products. But I guess you'd do it because you've read the ad, which is why he pays for the ad. So it's a massively expensive stack pushing up to the sky, trading on the gullible and wealthy. And what a wonderful combination the gullible and wealthy are. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Maybe I should set up a Patreon for you, huh? You can get exactly the same content but pay more for it. Spider venom may save your life, exclusive by Sue Dunlevy. Yeah, so as has been known for years, there are a lot of really interesting chemicals in venoms that could have all sorts of pharmacological effects. And there's a drug, it is hoped. Anytime they say it is hoped, it means has not done clinical trials, might not work. Okay, and we've got Nicole Kidman. She's in Sydney visiting her mum and sister, and they're talking about Big Little Lies, which happens to be on Foxtel, which has got the same, for this moment at least, parent company as the Telegraph. It'll be really funny if Foxtel does go through what's predicted to be a change of ownership, or structure, or completely shuts down, how the Sunday Telegraph's going to fill the pages. The mind boggles with future possibilities. Coffee, eh? Oh, man. Senior Aussies Let Down by Annika Smeta, so political correspondents covering the aged care beat. Almost 30,000 old Australians died or were forced into an aged care home last year while waiting to be approved for home care packages. I really think you should be breaking out the died and the forced into aged care numbers myself, but I guess you get a bigger headline number this week. So 1,430 seniors moved into a nursing home while waiting for help at home. Okay, so the Telegraph's claiming to be getting under the skin of the Chinese swimmer that they've been campaigning against, Sun Yang. Apparently he has taken the unprecedented step of asking the appeal into his latest doping scandal be heard in public after the Sunday Telegraph exclusively revealed the full details of how he escaped a ban for smashing his blood samples with a hammer. So we've got 2 pages of Cocaine Cassie and how great Colombian prisons are for your health. Just a classic sad story of people taking enormous risks to try and get ahead in the economy we live in. The fact that she's languishing in a Colombian prison and making the best of it, I mean, good luck to her. But I'm not sure the ogling of the Sunday Telegraph helps, but they might be getting ready to campaign for her early release, eh? Court case takes a bitter twist. CAC sues Olympian old mate. Right, so Kerry-Anne Kennedy's husband fell from a veranda at a golf resort. Problems of the rich and wealthy. And so now they're suing the owner of that resort, who's also a friend of the family, which makes you think the insurance company is about to take a god almighty bath. So there's a story here about a drug gang that the cops had them under the thumb the whole way along, in which case I would suggest they've been set up as a patsy by a real operation. But it's nice that the police are having fun. So there is news from the Splendour in the Grass festival. There's been a pill testing demo. It was well attended, and Chance the Rapper pulled out of the festival, which is not good. Right, apparently there's been a shake-up at the Missing Persons Unit, which has solved 31 cases in a year. How the cops are cracking the cases. So simple things like police checking names against custom records to see if people have left the country solved 10 cases this year. Interstate searches, there we go. National Criminal Investigative DNA database, less fun. Unidentified remains, so they're going back with DNA. And here we go, ancestry mapping. Police will use genealogy websites to try to put a name on unidentified remains. The police tapping into the genealogy DNA databases is something that is going to excite a lot of interest at, dinner table at Christmas as families come together and the criminal elements in the families realise they're getting grassed up by the genealogically minded members of the family who are more busy off sending out their DNA. I don't have a lot of sympathy for them, but it's a funny way to get busted because Auntie Doris wants to know if her great-great-grandfather was royalty. I mean, I get, when you're 14 years old, you want to hear stories about how your ancestors were someone important, but fundamentally, power is power, and if you ain't got it, being related to it distantly isn't going to get it for you. anytime you've heard a story of someone chancing into power, I'm willing to bet you can find another story of how they actually worked really hard for it. Okay, so capital of sky-high dreams, the megatropolis, special report, welcome to Sydney 2040, a place to live, work and play if you're rich. And they're noting that, as with every CBD in the world, the real estate pressures and improving construction methods mean it's much more likely to go high, because you improve your yield per square metre paid for. You could make an argument that cities should be charging for the vertical potential of real estate when land is sold or zoned or rezoned for further use, but property developers wouldn't like that. And, property developers only run the show because they actually take an interest and turn up to meetings. You've got to, give them that and pay a lot of money in donations, but they're not alone in that. Mining industry and banks and services companies. Here's a modern tragedy. They threw away our girl's placenta. Couple has been left devastated after they asked 6 times to keep the placenta from the birth of the daughter, only for the hospital to throw it away. They blame Canterbury Hospital for being under-resourced, well, the government for under-resourcing Canterbury Hospital. I don't want to be that guy, but most of humanity's managed for most of its history without keeping the placenta. I know there are huge benefits, possibly, if it's done. I don't know. But sure, page 19, have a whinge. Apparently plastic surgery is selling a fake ideal. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? That's a Linda Silmalis special. Labor is being wedged by sex perverts, says Annika Smethurst. Although Labor thinks new laws make it easier to deport foreign-born sex perverts and thugs are setting the bar too low, it might vote for them anyway. With Parliament resuming in Canberra this week, the government had hoped to debate the legislation, which would mean any visa holder who commits a sex or violent act is booted out of the country. Currently, foreign-born thugs can only be deported if they receive a sentence of at least 12 months in jail. It's a real law and order race to the bottom there, isn't it? I'm not going to argue against deporting sex perverts or people committing violent crimes either, but we have traditionally had the threshold of 1 year in jail being the threshold between serious crime and not serious crime, and apparently we're throwing that out the window. I wonder if we'll, because it's also the disqualification threshold for being a member of Parliament. Are we going to disqualify all our parliamentarians who've been guilty of minor sex crimes or violence? Interesting one, because there is the odd bit of biffo in the halls of Parliament, and if they could rub each other out by calling in the cops for relatively minor assaults, that could be an interesting pathway for our democracy to take. So now we have an ad for the real estate industry. Average wage gets your foot in the door in twice as many suburbs. Homes not just for the rich now. Aidan Devine brings us this news. Home buyers on an average wage can afford to purchase houses in twice as many suburbs as they could 2 years ago when prices were at their peak. We're not really thinking of the flip side of this, are they? That, what sort of country we want to be in and what it means. And what sort of country we were when the idealised version of ourselves came to form, which was one where land was reasonably cheap. Millions of dollars unclaimed. Missing millions includes money from shared dividends, trust accounts, deceased estates, overpayments arranged from other sources. So this is with Revenues New South Wales. To check if you have any... wow, this is the worst URI I have ever seen. apps08.osr.newsouthwales/EREVENUE, so e-revenue, /UCM/UCM search_search.php. They really don't want you finding that, do they? Alibi case is back on again. Yoni Bashan brings us the news. This is the murder of Karen Webble. Sorry, Karen Webble's mother, Eva Webble, maybe. Eva Webble, yes. 2 victims, Eva Webble and Denise Gardner. So there's a new police task force. This is the guy last week they were stitching up for his statements. Like, how could I have afforded a thing like a hitman? And there's an exclusive podcast. I'm all for criminals being brought to justice. I would prefer it if it were done by the police and the courts, rather than the Telegraph picking what it thinks it can make a podcast out of. But there's some big defamation cases that are going to come out of these, and I guess we'll find out what the judges think of it. And what the judges think isn't a perfect reflection of an ideal world either, but it's better than the editors of the Telegraph. Page 26, we've got The Source, the political gossip with Annika Smethurst, Linda Salmalis and Miranda Wood. Alan's words of wisdom. Alan Jones, that is, has had words of wisdom. And then we have a page of Alan Jones holding forth, sadly looking like he's not in a great deal of pain. Here's a strange opening part. There is nothing like a swish poolside party to brighten up the dreary Sydney winter. You're not going swimming, are you? Not since the glory days of the 1990s when lobbying firm Parker and Partners ruled the roost has there been a gathering of heavy hitters like those that packed into the state-of-the-art Wallara abode of lobbying firm Strategic Political Council. Founder Michael Cowter and husband Royal Prince Alfred transplant physician Professor David Gracie. Oh, that is an unbelievably shit sentence. Apologies for my language. Still don't. I've looked at it over and over, and I don't understand what the hell this sentence is. But we're also bigging up a lobbying firm. That is some crap journalism. Oh, these guys. These are the guys you want to give your money to if you want to pervert democracy, isn't it fantastic? The canapes were amazing. Held to welcome new Liberals Wentworth MP David Sharma, Reid MP Fiona Martin, and Senators Holly Hughes and Andrew Bragg. So a lobbying firm is holding a party to welcome new members of Parliament. And it's got to the point where we can do this in the open instead of behind closed doors. And then celebrate it and take social pictures. Ugh. Right. After performance by singer Matthew Manahan, star of the upcoming musical Hair, Jones took to the floor to deliver his words of wisdom to the new MPs. Oddly enough, Alan Jones has never managed to get elected to anything. He's tried quite a few times. Noting Hughes and Martin's interest in mental health, which is terrific, Jones warned their foremost priority needs to be the economy. You can't have any of this if the economy is crook, he said, which is the classic line of big business of you have to give us everything we want and we might give you something. Right, so former Premier Mike Baird has used the FaceApp app, which makes you look older if you haven't caught that craze sweeping across social media. And that is apparently our second item of source behind the complete debauchery of the body public at the hands of lobbyists and the parrot. Andrew Cappy Wood, who has been a big mover and shaker in various public servants, has retired. A lot of important people went to that farewell party. And life away from Canberra suits Julie Bishop, who celebrated her 63rd birthday on the French Riviera, soaking her feet, no doubt, in buckets of champagne. Isn't she fabulous? Oh, Julie's wrote that it was indeed fabulous. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Page 27, Fly Me to the Moon Again. NASA is using the historic Apollo missions as its blueprint for its future space missions. Now, this is Trump's thought bubble of a man on the moon a woman on the moon in 2024, but a return to humans standing on the moon in 2024, for which none of the necessary infrastructure that would have to exist by now exists. So I'm going to call it here, and I have actually put this out there on Quora and had answers from people who work at NASA, and they also believe that there is no way it is possible, and that NASA is making no moves whatsoever to achieve it for this 2024 mission to occur. I can only assume it's going to fail on the basis that Trump doesn't plan to be, or can't possibly be in the White House unless the world's taken a very dark turn. At which point we probably won't mind about a failed moon mission, or the lack of a moon mission. It's not going to fail, it's just not going to happen. But thankfully the newspapers are full of journalists and capable of thought. So we can just report on it as if it's happening without actually doing it. Which is always the dream, isn't it? To page 28 and page 29, Belinda Sharp's debut as the first NRL referee, which is good. Welcome to the new podcast-based economy. We have news of the new must-listen podcast for busy mums to be launched this week on kidspot.com.au, hosted by Studio 10's Sarah Harris and kidspot.com.au editor Melissa Wilson. The Juggling Act podcast will include the journalists and mothers speaking with experts on issues ranging from family finances to helping children settle into care. I think they're going to find it a little harder than they think, but good luck to them. Tattoo parlour in Newtown's been torched. Scruffy Oxford Street is to be given a sparkling makeover. I'm sure people who actually live on and use Oxford Street will not be thrilled by the news that the government plans to give it the treatment they gave King's Cross. Although shop and office spaces which have been derelict for more than 20 years will be transformed, doesn't sound all bad. Anthony Albanese wants his MPs to take a bigger role in question time by raising issues from their electorates. It's probably a bad sign. Question time is being used well, and you can generally tell when an opposition is getting its act together to the point they might be able to take government when they figure this out. They coordinate their questioning in the Senate and the reps to force out discrepancies in the government story. And like just before Kevin Rudd came to power, Labor was getting really, really good at this. And similarly, John Howard's opposition before he did over Paul Keating had started to really learn how to use this. And if you're just taking community issue stuff because you've run out of ideas, it just means you've run out of ideas, doesn't it? I mean, Albo should have an agenda for question time, and his strategy team should be running that. And hopefully they will. Hopefully this is just a smokescreen. They don't even mean what they're saying. Right, cast back Game of Thrones finale. The Game of Thrones cast has leapt to the defence of its much maligned final season in front of a boisterous crowd at San Diego Comic-Con. Nikolai Coster-Waldau was booed after describing his character's death in the arms of his sister-in-law Cersei as perfect. It made sense to me, he said. Talking his own book there, but I think the fans really need to stop being such pissy babies. Oh, we're up to the snitch. Flip side of Coin Rant. Former rugby league star Mark Coyne's expletive-laden tantrum in Singapore hasn't done him any favours with police back home. So Mark Coyne is the chief executive officer of a thing called Employers Mutual Limited, which apparently manages personal injury claims for New South Wales police officers. And, I don't know, he's been arrested in Singapore and swore at the cops who don't take kindly to that sort of thing in Singapore. Not quite sure why this is a Law and Order story, but there it is. I guess they couldn't stuff it anywhere else. So also the snitch is covering the doings of Gary Jubilin, freshly retired detective. Apparently he's drinking with his underbelly actor. Nice. So Ava and Brendan, the authors of The Snitch, are complaining that Sophia Tilley, who served them in a bar, one of them in a bar recently, the Veranda Bar near the courts, was the centre of the Margaret Caneen ICAC, and also a cocaine possession charge, which had no conviction recorded. Anyway, apparently she remembered the journalists and was not super friendly, but did still serve them by the sound of it. So aside from a little yah-boo, someone we went after is now having to work in a bar. I'm not sure what they're achieving there, and they have at least used a nice picture of her. Right, so we've got a story about Wentworth, which is on Foxtel. There's a story about video game screen time has gone down. I think it's just 'cause maybe I'm getting old, but I just don't enjoy the games as much as I used to, and I think it's because they're not as good. And when I go back, I'm just getting old. I'm getting old, I'll give you that, but I can still drop way more hours into Skyrim, which is getting quite long in the tooth. Every few months I spend $100 and buy a new game, and it's been a long time since I didn't regret it. That's a habit I should probably drop, I guess. So we're going to have a museum, a museum for the Ute, which is probably going to be in Deniliquin, I'm guessing. This is part of a drought stimulus package. It doesn't seem like the smartest way to allocate government funding to say, oh, we have a drought, let's build a Ute museum. I mean, we could price water properly and clean out all those turkey nest dams that the cotton industry use, and with a proper water grid with properly priced water in it, then farmers using slightly less water intensive practices and crops could compete for that water economically. Just a thought, but Ute Museum, that's cool too. Right, DNA is going to end the cattle rustlers. So apparently the Inner West Council is going to give paid time off to do a climate strike protest, which I would say the electors of the Inner West need to make up their own minds on, but I'll concede that is a legitimate point of discussion. Possibly not the way the Telegraph's framed it, mind you. Apparently now wedding season runs all year, say the wedding planners. This Lambs of God show's getting another full page. They're really betting the Foxtel farm on that. I don't see it turning things around. Apparently, and we might get to it in this paper, but Foxtel's now got a right to show put Netflix content out, which is interesting. Canberra's Hayley Jensen's in here. How Kylie made me a country music star. Oh, it was thanks to advice from Kylie Minogue. She's taken the country music world by storm. Originally, she's from the outskirts of Canberra, so she's country. She's going to festivals including the UK's Buckle and Boots, Canada's Calgary Stampede, and next weekend's Groundwater Country Music Festival on the Gold Coast. Apparently, Kylie told us she needs to give it everything. You've got to give it 100% and you'll make it. Worst advice ever. It's great that Hayley gave it 100% and made it, but the world is literally full of people who gave it 100% and got horribly crushed. But we don't tell their stories, do we? We don't even want to hear them. Too busy telling our own stories about getting horribly crushed. Alright, so we have the old school inner city publicans. Good for them. How many of them got pokies? Doesn't say. Walking to school is healthier than sport. That's good to know. Okay, we're into the inserts. We haven't hit sport yet. It's a bit odd. Imagine cruising. Here we go. Sport. Rich people running into each other. Aren't they lucky? Aren't they our heroes? Aren't they your hero? The Raiders of 1989 have had a reunion. It was a good team. And we're now into the horse torture. Page 53. Escape, a fresh guide to river cruising for fanatical river cruisers. Nothing says you're old like a river cruise. Having said that, I have caught river ferries up some of the bigger rivers of the world, and along with train travel, do find it one of my favourite ways to travel. But I'm talking about ferries, I'm not talking about river cruises. I'm not getting grey, but I'm not that grey. Anyway, river travel. The oldies are onto something with those river cruises. Safari in Botswana, Castle Mountain and Sulphur Mountain. I wonder where they are. Canada. But glossy magazine. Bindi Irwin in another nice dress. She really... Local fashion boutiques have done well out of her. Lava's All You Need, Mount Agung, which is Bali. Exclusives in Fiji, Canada and Alaska. We're off to see the lizard, that's Komodo. Still Indonesia. Macau, so much more than a gambling mecca. Also a gambling mecca. German Christmas fairy tale. Summit to Sea, Mount Fuji. Still reckon you better just whipping out TripAdvisor than all this sponsored crap. Which, even if they are talking about something that'd be cool, you just don't know because it's all paid for and the company knows they're dealing with a journalist at the time, so it's not the same experience you're going to get. A long time ago I did a bit of food reviewing and always took a picture of what I was reviewing myself. And despite giving good reviews, started getting a lot of serious hate from the restaurants involved, and they were seriously wanting me to go in and take an idealised version, a photo of an idealised version of their food, not what they actually served. And we had quite a disagreement of minds on that subject. I mean, what is the kids section for? Does anyone with kids actually read this thing? I have my doubts. It does actually cost them quite a lot of money to print a page over the size of these print runs. I would assume those who do use it complain bitterly when it isn't there, because I can tell you when I worked at one magazine, when the week the crossword didn't feature, that a lot of correspondence. Vegan seafood, yoga, Copenhagen. I can't get an erection anymore. Pretty average 44-year-old bloke. What's the advice here? Lay off the beers. Same goes for party drugs. Don't get fat, lazy, unfit, or drink or smoke too much. Smoking, obesity, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure are not the only risk factors for cardiovascular disease, but they're also proven risk factors for erectile dysfunction. Antidepressants also to blame. The first step is to see your GP, as usual. Here we go, there's the advice. Go see the doctor. Don't ask the advice column in the Telegraph. Health lessons from a home and away star. Weightlifting has changed her life. Yeah, be nice to have the time. I mean, I don't even have kids and I don't have the time. I don't know how anyone else manages. parents, I salute you. Alright, dog torture after some more horse torture. And we're back to the humans. Mark Geyer has a crusade to tackle mental health issues. IOC, that's the International Olympic Commission, must be bound by moral compass. Well, it never has in the past. Why would it start now? Oh, this is the give Australia all the medals for the drug cheats that didn't get caught compared to the drug cheats that did. I don't know, sure, they weren't all drug cheats. Just saying, going back and handing out 30, 40, 50-year-old Olympic medals on the basis of imperfect knowledge. Oh, it'll make it. I mean, sporting success is all vicarious, isn't it? I don't win Olympic medals. Someone else wins an Olympic medal on the back of their hard work, but apparently I'm supposed to feel like I have achieved something by virtue of having partially shared a continent with them while they trained. It seems to work that way for a lot of people. Mark Gasnier talking about an evolution, expand or die for rugby league. Oh, so they're going to expand the competition. Second Brisbane team coming, eh? That's what way to handicap the Broncos. I mean, yeah, you want to destroy the Canberra Raiders. A second Canberra region team would do that at a stroke. Wow, the Central West Astronomical Society Astrophotography Awards, better known as the David Marlin Awards, were handed out, and there were some great photos, so into the paper they go. That's the trick. Have great photos, send them to the paper. They will publish them if it's a good photo. Used to have people complain at me they couldn't get into a publication I was working for. I kept saying to them, take a photo. I literally had an editor who wouldn't let me run even a very worthy story if it didn't have a photo, and this woman cried at me down the phone line about how they couldn't get covered. Right, so we've got a Lawyer X gangland story going on. This is promoting a Sky News special, Lawyer X, The Untold Story. But mum, dad and their dog were all executed. It's certainly a compelling headline for something that would appear not to actually be news, but in fact a promotion for a TV show. Right, world news. The Srebrenica massacre of the 1990s, in fact 1995. So, nearly a quarter of a century ago. That's our big world news. The Dutch Supreme Court has noted that Holland was partly responsible for the massacre, which everyone who followed it at the time was entirely aware of. 10% responsible for a massacre is not very responsible. I'd keep pointing the finger at the 90%ers, not the 10%ers myself. The issue was that in the Yugoslav civil wars, this Srebrenica was designated a haven, and the Dutch were sent to protect the haven. And when the Serbs turned up to take everyone away, the Dutch essentially surrendered. If they had dug in and fought and called for help, a lot of them would have died, but maybe a lot less people being massacred, and that's kind of case of whose job is it? Anyway, the technicalities of that they're sort of covered here. Greece roasts Turkey. Greece and Turkey are feuding over a flashpoint in the island of Cyprus. They could have written that story any time in the last 70 years. Turkey's doing gas drilling off Cyprus, though, which is the issue. El Chapo's and Supermax. Right, the Iran seizes UK tanker. I've noted the lack of the Sunday Telegraph's coverage of this story as it's unfolded, but there you go. We've got a third of a page. Also, sharing room with time for geeks to marvel because San Diego Comic Con's on, which means there's a lot of people in funny costumes, which means great photos. Barefoot investor Scott Pape notes scammers are getting smarter, but there are ways to beat them at their own game. Yeah, you can have fun with scammers. Bitcoin is on a tear at the moment, so there's fortunes to be won and definitely fortunes to be lost. But yeah, definitely a lot of hype going on. I would say by the time the hype's in the newspaper, you've missed your chance. This is not investment advice by any means, just an observation. By the time Bitcoin got in the paper and the hairdressers were investing, everyone who was going to make money had made the money, and the smart ones were getting out. And so we come to Peter Credlin. And she's let Peter Gleeson onto the bottom quarter of the page. Climate cult can't hold all the power. The closer I came to the centre of power in Canberra, the more I appreciated how the decisions or indecisions of government can make a crucial difference to the fate of our country. 5, 10 or 20 years down the track. Take submarines, for instance, blah. Yeah, it was a terrible decision. Take electricity, another terrible decision. Australia is becoming a country where making things is more trouble than it's worth. Yes, Peter, that was policy settings under the Abbott government, closing down the car industry, remember? She doesn't trust them renewables. So this message brought to you by the coal industry. Thank you, Peter. And then we stop deleting Jacinda. Back in the 1890s, New Zealand was offered a chance to join our country as a state of Australia. This is about Jacinda not wanting long-term Australian residents being deported to New Zealand. Like Dutton, I don't accept that any foreigner who has committed a serious crime in Australia should be allowed to remain here. Plenty of your colleagues, anyway. Thumbs up to Federal Industry Minister Karen Andrews telling the states to clean up their building regulation mess, and no, she's not bailing them out when they've raked in billions in stamp duty. Thumbs down to California's University of Berkeley has banned manhole. Even man-made will be outlawed and artificial used instead. Isn't this always... Only this isn't always accurate, but heck, why be accurate anymore? Well, a manhole isn't accurate when there's women working in the utilities either, is it, Peter? So you're given a thumbs down to a university that's chosen to designate things in a way of its choosing. Right, Peter Gleeson has been allowed to fill out the page with time for Get Up to pack up and get out of grubby politics. Political bad guys get up, stand to condemn today as the greatest scourge and threat seen to the ideals and principles of modern Australia. I think by that he means they are opposed to things my paymasters are in favour of. I don't know what that's doing in a newspaper, but there we go. Mark Boris, the man who does illegal election advertising to favour his chosen real estate industry, let off with a formal warning, but, he says big data is worth big bucks. I wonder if that's at all related to his robocalling electioneering. Mark's noticed e-commerce. Good for him. Annika Smethurst. Why elbows cuddlier than Bill? Anthony Albanese wants to portray himself as a different kind of opposition leader, someone who is totally unlike Bill Shorten. Apparently it's a small gesture distinct from the old regime to ask his MPs what they want to ask questions about in question time. And, look, Elbow, you might have felt like you're a man of the people, but you just look fat and old there. I would look like that if I posed like that. And I'd try and avoid that for a newspaper. Oh, look, he's got a dog. The dog's called Toto. Jeez, you're bloody original there, Albo. Still, you got another story out of Annika about how lovely you are. Right, Duncan Lay is still trying to find something to do with Game of Thrones having passed. Melbourne reminds him of the Eloy and the Morlocks from the Time Machine. Then he tells the story of the Time Machine, for those who don't know, who I don't imagine care. Look, I mean, the Eloy and the Morlocks was H.G. Wells allegorizing, I think 120 odd years ago, easily 120 odd years ago if memory serves. Over a century, let's go with that. And Duncan has just noticed the allegory between the people who make the machinery work and the people who enjoy the fruits of that. He seems to have taken the wrong messages out of it, but that's fine. Oh, what a complete waste of time. Oh, here we go. The elites would welcome terrorists back with open arms and empty heads by Piers Ackerman. Who are the elites? The ministers of the damn elites. That clink clink sounds, by the way, is a dog scratching himself. We'll let him continue. He may as well take some pleasure out of this. Opinion, city's future is a growing problem. Well spotted. And they noted, oh hooray, a woman is refereeing NRL. Haven't we made progress? You know, once we led the world in giving women the vote, and now we're patting ourselves on the back when we let them referee a game of football. Apparently being determined is how you win an auction in Leichhardt. I think that means spend more money than anyone else, but the real estate agents do try to make that heroic, with good reason for themselves. Insider movies. It's weird that the Insider column does the movie reviews, but as we've noted, they tend to have a bit of rigour. Diego Maradona, 3.5 stars. Apocalypse Now, the final cut, 3.5 stars. I'm sure Apocalypse Now needed 3.5 stars from the Sunday Telegraph. The Keeper gets 3 stars. Defend, Conserve, Protect, 3 stars. Courage at All at Sea in desperate fight to save whales. Yeah, starring Paul Watson, so it's about Sea Shepherd. Double page on The Lion King. Angela Mollard tells us why I'd be a different mum if I could start from scratch. Duncan Lay's back with the Area 51 plan, so he's been covering the internet beat. There's a bunch of people saying they want to rush the fence and find out what's in Area 51. I would put it to you that even if there was anything alien related, the fact you've publicised your efforts to break in, should they be successful, we'll still find nothing. Jesus, like you're going to beat the deep state by running at the wire. Orange is the New Black, socials. Sam Armitage is happy with her new man because, of course, happiness depends on having a new man or a man. Apparently she's moved on with the new and much better suited bloke. Right, friends are reluctant to give up the new man's name. Mystery. Annette Sharp informs us that Bob Hawke was a disappointing father to the bitter end. You know, Bob Hawke was a man of significant achievement and accomplishment, far more than probably any other Australian alive today, and was never claimed to be a perfect character, and any sadness in his life and with his children, I would have thought would be something for them and not for the pages of the Sunday Telegraph. But admittedly, if I was editor of the Sunday Telegraph, it would be a thinner paper with a lot more world news in it. Maybe some mention of homelessness. There ain't none here. Okay, folks, thank you very much for coming with me on this journey. I believe we have come to know our enemies a little better. And do please tell your friends who you think might enjoy this. Don't tell the ones who won't enjoy it, because why waste their time? Yeah, cheers, we'll see you next week.